Okay, so yeah, I work at eBay. I work in a research group in eBay. I just moved down from Microsoft, where I spent 8 years in Microsoft research up there and in the Xbox team. Just my little disclaimer, I used to do a lot of speaking for Microsoft, and sometimes these things look more like products than they are. I want to be really clear. What I'm going to show you is research. I run an exploratory prototyping group at eBay. We do stuff that may be high risk, may be unusual, may be hard to map to business strategy, but stuff that's strategically important for eBay, so there's always a need to get out there and start building something. So that's sort of what our group does, and I'm going to show you one of the projects that we're building right now. Not a shipping product. So currently I'm running the Epic Design Lab at eBay. I was at Microsoft for 8 years, so I ran a team in Windows called the User Interface Strategy Team. We did a lot of stuff with Search UI in Windows and things like that. I also invented a system while I was at Microsoft called Kodu, which is a kids game programming system that runs on the Xbox that's now in about 50 countries, 600,000 installs, and it's doing pretty well. Actually, I just saw a thing of a 7-year-old girl who won a national contest demoing her game to Obama that she had designed and programmed herself on the Xbox. That was a big thrill for me. And I ran an indie design studio for 7 years in between Apple and Microsoft, where I was in UI frameworks and worked on Newton 1.0. Does anyone remember Newton 1.0? Woo! That was a really fun project. So a little bit of stuff about eBay. It's a really interesting company to be inside. We generally think of the auctions business. That's about half our revenue right now. But we are dealing with millions and millions of people on a daily basis, and it's really fun to have this incredible surface area for experimentation. So there's some of the numbers. We're getting 1 billion page views per day, 100 million active users, 12 million daily, and we're in 39 markets. So we have very different versions of the site in Russia than we have in the US. We're starting to do some stuff like we have a version of the site, of the US site, that's machine translated into Spanish, because we're seeing a lot of cross-border trade from Mexico and things like that. So increasingly, our business is all around the world, and every little decision we make, we really have to vet against a bunch of different cultures, which is interesting and fun problems for us. Also, most of the stuff we actually sell on eBay is actually at fixed price now. We're seeing a big transition where before it was for people who wanted to be in the auction space. Now it's really just for all kinds of sales things. PayPal is our other favorite child. They're growing like gangbusters, really huge year over year. I don't want to do the whole drill down on it. But they've got 100 million users, and they're doing $130 billion in volume every year. So fun numbers to play with, but also ecosystems that you have to be really careful about disrupting with experimentation. So this is some of the stuff just about what my interest is and some of the other design folks I work with in gaming, gamification. It's really my personal philosophy that what we call gamification today, we're just going to call design tomorrow. Because no one really wants an experience that's less fun. No one wants an experience that's less engaging. So if you're talking about a set of design principles that helps you to do more fun, more engaging experiences that people are more likely to use, that applies to absolutely every product on the planet. So I think that gamification as a term is going to kind of disappear, and it's just going to become what we call good design. And I think you start to see whispers of this on platforms like iOS. But other things that we look for in gaming, is how game graphics, the idea of a user interface that runs at 60 frames per second. If you've ever developed user interface for the Xbox, you're working with a team that's sensitive to things like millisecond timing on interactions. So it's not enough to click on a big clunky button and wait and have the whole page redraw and stuff like that. People are used to really, really fluid experiences. We also see that a lot of companies, I saw it at Microsoft. Of course, Apple is known for being very good at design. Part of why I was coming to eBay is part of a big culture change that we're doing intentionally around becoming a more design-centric company. And as you look at trying to become more design-centric as a large enterprise, there's not a lot of models out there for how to do that. I mean, it's the sort of facile strategy is to let's go hire a bunch of graphic designers. But graphic designers are really good at doing visuals. Designing experiences is completely different art. And what we see, if you want to take a $100 million project and throw 1,000 designers at it, game industry is really the guys who know how to do that right now. So for us, gaming is really a deep thread. It goes to how we build our user interface. Also goes how we staff and organize. If you look at, I won't go into it now, but take a look sometime at how companies like Rockstar organize for projects like Grand Theft Auto 4 with 1,000 people, it's really lessons that we're taking very seriously in the corporate environment. So we're really looking at out of the games industry and gaming culture. We're looking at sort of an orientation around the user that's much deeper than in many design organizations. Processes that are organized around doing things that are very, very subjective at really, really large scale. And there's a real art to that. And then all the tools. If you want to do really good, really engaging UI, you need tools that let your artists move really quickly. So we're stealing all this stuff. I'm hiring a lot of people out of games industry, and for me it's just part of taking design into the future. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about commerce and what is really, really a big trend for for eBay right now. Still learning my new reflexes. But it's really that mobile has created this blurring of the line between shopping in the real world and shopping online in a way that's making a lot of merchants really uncomfortable, and with really good reason. So you walk into a store today, and if you've got your little device with you, I love to go to Fry's, I'm going around, I'm looking at the products, and I'm using my phone to check for where the best price is. I'm checking the reviews, I'm getting coupons, I'm getting offers from Amazon for the thing I'm looking at in the store. And so this is creating a bunch of challenges for merchants, at every scale. So the big box guys and the little guys on the corner, they have all this multi-channel selling coming at them. They have demand generation coming through things like Groupon. They have global competition. The little guy on the corner is now competing with the little guy on the corner across the planet. And then the pace of innovation. People are just cranking stuff out so fast. It's really hard for a store that doesn't have a big design IT department to catch up. And so this is something that is very near and dear to our heart at eBay, and this is really central to a change that's happening at the company to the tune of billions of dollars to spend every year. Is what we're doing is we're investing in, of course, we have our auction site. We have PayPal, which lets you pay for anything from anywhere with any device. And we just made this big acquisition last year called GSI Commerce. I don't know if everyone heard about this one, but this is a company that has really been very, very successful and made a lot of money at helping really large companies take all their commerce activity online. And so those are sort of our big building blocks. This other really interesting thing we're doing is eBay Local. And this is something that's pretty new for us. We acquired a company called Milo. And what Milo does is basically the idea is if you're in a strange town and you need to buy a pair of sunglasses, you can pull up your phone and do a search for it. It'll show you where the sunglasses are available, what their prices are, and how far they are away from you physically. So really it's about, I need sunglasses. Okay, we found some for you that are 100 feet away in this direction. So it's a big data challenge. We brought that team in because they're really good at designing around this stuff, and they're in the field working with merchants to online their inventory into these kind of systems. And increasingly, this is something that every store in the world is just going to have to do. If someone walking down the street can find product on your competitor's shelf, but they can't find it on your shelf, then you've disappeared from really half the commerce ecosystem. So local is something we've been really, really drilling in on. And who are we? So this is my group, EPIC. It stands for Exploratory Prototyping and Innovation Center. We're called Code First Design Team. So we're all designers, but we're designers mostly who happen to write code as well. And this is also an emerging trend if you're involved with HR and recruiting designers now. Increasingly, everything's moving so fast. If you have designers who can't write the code to get the thing on the screen, and more importantly, can't understand what happens after they throw their designs over the wall, you're going to be slower than the team next door to you, which can basically build working prototypes as they design the product. We're a team of that nature, but we're essentially an applied research team. So we talk to a lot of people internally and externally and figure out what the important trends are, and then we build working prototypes that directly confront those trends. And the nice thing, it's like being a startup, but it's startup with a guaranteed paycheck, which is always a nice way to go. So we've got a very senior team of guys from Microsoft and Apple and Rockstar and teams like that. We do a lot of stuff with crazy UI in the browser, and some stuff in this project you're about to show you are really around these emerging input modalities. We're all familiar with touch, gesture, if you work with Connect, which we're doing a lot, natural user interface, kind of Microsoft's term for it, but then also passive input is this thing we're seeing. You can kind of look at Foursquare as sort of a harbinger of this, is something where playing the game, participating in the experience doesn't actually require you to go out and do anything. Your phone can kind of act like your sort of game token in the real world for you. Click. So this project I'm going to talk about now is called Digital Downtown, and we're working with a couple different sites to put this together. And really, to think of a good way to understand what I'm about to show is that this is something that we are doing for game designers. We're currently sponsoring a game design practicum at UC Santa Cruz, which has the largest game design PhD program in the world today. Really, really good guys. I've hired guys out of that program. Guys interned with me up in Microsoft Research. They're doing really, really deep work. I mean, a lot of university work in game design is pretty superficial. It's around sort of getting people to come into computer science by letting them work on Quake or something like that. They're doing stuff that's much deeper and more thoughtful, and that's why we're sponsoring their practicum this year. But this is kind of what the system that we're putting together looks like. This map, don't take it literally. We're evaluating a couple sites for it. But what we're basically doing is we're taking sort of a high-end shopping district where people generally walk around, window shop in a few stores. It's really nice, wide sidewalks, tree-lined streets, cafes, a place that's pleasant to be as a starting point. And we're installing these big touchscreens around on the street. So we're having a couple of them. We could do one. The reason we're doing multiple is, again, remember, we're talking to game designers, and we want to give them a really, really cool game field to build their game design experiences on. So we've got these kiosks around. We put Bluetooth and Wi-Fi beacons around in different stores because what we're really trying to do is create a simulation of what the shopping environment of 2020 is going to be. So it's stuff that you see here and there around, but if you're a designer and a practitioner, it's hard to find an environment that has everything you need in it. One of the reasons we're putting Bluetooth and Wi-Fi beacons in is it lets you do really, really precise location. So if you get down to that, I want to tell you that your sunglasses are 100 feet away, we need to know exactly where you are to do that, and GPS often doesn't do it for us. And then what we're doing is with Milo and the team that is internal now at Microsoft, is we're going basically door to door. Milo has pretty good uptake. They've got tens of thousands of retailers online, but this is an area where we're basically creating an environment that is, we're approaching 90% of the retailers online. Every product on their shelf is in our system for us to design games and new experiences against. And then finally what we're doing is there are apps that go with this that are sort of what we consider sort of the platinum level of play for participants in this ecosystem. If you have the app, it can serve as your game token within a series of different experiences. And notice I'm talking about a bunch of different experiences. Generally my philosophy with systems like this, where you have like a high capital outlay to get the system up and going, you've got a lot of labor going, you can't do it for just one game. And this is like when I had my own studio, this is what we always heard from VCs and such, is they can't put a value on one game. It's a very high risk thing if you're doing a gamification strategy at your company. It's really tough to work for a year, do one thing, you missed one key dynamic, and suddenly no one believes in gamification anymore. So we're really taking a portfolio approach where we're building a platform, we're building an ecosystem of game designers drawing from students outside and inside the company, and then rolling out experience after experience. And then we can learn from them, they're highly instrumented, and use data to refine our experience and see what actually works for shoppers in this space. Woo! You ever see broadcast news where our Albert Brooks is just sweating his clothes off? That's me right now. So just in a little more detail, we have these network sensors. So really when you walk into this environment, if you're opted in, we know who you are, we know exactly where you're standing, we know where all the other participants in this game world are standing, and there are multiple ways to interact. If you have the app, that's great, that's best case for us, and you can play from that. If you don't, you see these kiosks that are calling out to you with different moments of the game experience and different sort of like snackable fun things to do. The experiences span multiple devices, and again, these are constraints that we give our game designers. If you want something where you have base stations and satellites, well, the kiosk is your base station, use the phones as your satellite. And then retailers are participating in this. So one of the big things for this, if you're building a good sort of gamification ecosystem like this, before long as you build it out, you find yourself in the advertising business. Certainly for us, where it's not all about just us sending people to ebay.com, we actually want to send people to those retailers around in the environment. So really our job is to pull the people in with these engaging experiences, and then what we're also doing is providing tools to the retailers where they can push new data into this environment that meets their business needs. I'll talk about that more in a second. So these are kind of the four basic pieces in this environment where we're prototyping out both internal and exterior environments. Internal is a little interesting because you find a lot of the advanced UI technology is using infrared these days. Things like Kinect, Microsoft Surface are all infrared sensors. They're really sensitive to daylight. So you put them up on a sunny street and suddenly they can't see what's going on anymore. But in this environment, we have this stuff all networked together with the software foundation under it that integrates your mobile platform, your kiosk. The retailers have a window into it through some of our retail-facing services, and then social media is sort of overlays all of it. This is one piece of technology we're working with, the Surface 2. There are a lot of good big touchscreens out there. We chose the Surface 2 because it's the most sort of military class hardware around in this space. It's the biggest piece of Gorilla Glass you can buy on the planet today. It's very ruggedized, the operating system's very ruggedized, and it's an amazing platform. One of the nice things that Surface 2 can do, for example, is if you have two people using it in a table configuration, it can actually see their entire image of their finger as they press on the screen, so it can tell from there which participant is pressing on the screen. So if you've ever tried to do multiplayer touchscreen things, you always wind up having a lot of weird UI infrastructure to figure out who can play where. You can press these buttons, you can press those. With Surface, we can actually just tell who pressed the screen automatically. It's kind of built in. You can do 100 simultaneous touches. It's really kind of best-in-class hardware. We wish it was a little bit of a larger screen, and I guess they just changed the name of it. We can't really call it Surface anymore. This is what we call sort of our Hello World application, and it starts to illustrate some of the design principles that we see in this retail ecosystem. So this is called Catch Me If You Can. As from a game designer's perspective, it's the simplest thing in the world. But the idea here is there's someone who's walking through a shopping district, either a mall internally or an exterior shopping street, and the first thing we want to do is simply get their attention. And then from there, segue into the commerce kind of activities. And so what this one does is it's basically, there's a big cornucopia that opens up, and there are these coupons that drop from the sky. As you walk up to it, you can engage with it and catch the coupons and put them on a little rack, and we have a nice set of game mechanics around getting the right coupons. And then from there, there's a 2-minute experience, and this kind of gives you the basic skeleton of the experiences we're putting together. It has to be something that basically you can go from catching a sight of it out of the corner of your eye to playing through a full experience within 2 minutes. Because these are people who are in a public space, they're not really wanting to nerd out on your kiosk for an hour like they might do on their cell phone. The interesting thing, and what makes this a research project, is we're working in an unauthenticated environment. So when you're working on your phone, it already knows who you are, it probably has your credit card number, you can do single-click purchase and things like that. In the mall, the kiosk doesn't know who you are at all initially. And your people are very, very reluctant to go in and start typing in passwords on a big display keyboard. So there's all these different dynamics you start to see on a public screen, and that's part of the research value for us, is get into the field with this stuff and understand these things. One of the software layers we're working with is a system that comes out of Intel, and it's anonymized face recognition. And what this does is there's a couple of interesting things for us. One is we want to do sort of a rough demographic partitioning of people who walk up to the screen, so that we're not trying to sell little kids' toys to a 45-year-old guy like me, and like that. But we're not trying to figure out who someone is. It's not a Minority Report kind of scenario. But what it does is really, as you approach the kiosk, you can see the UI reconfigure to present content that's more interesting to you before you've even touched the screen. This is technology that exists in the world today. It's actually a really, really robust system. The other thing that it does for us is we may not know exactly who you are, but we can recognize you when you come back. And that's really important, because if you look at that system I just showed you, where you're going and catching coupons, how do you then take the coupon off the screen? And there's like really dumb kind of brute force ways. You could email it to yourself and things like that. But what we want is basically the kiosk to recognize you here. When you go into the retail environment, it can recognize you again and say, oh yeah, that's the guy I just gave this 40% off coupon to. More about coupons. You'll see the coupons are everywhere in this, because they're basically coin of the realm in retail. And sort of the next layer of experience we're doing is this one is very utilitarian, but it's modeled off of Xbox Live leaderboards. And so the idea here is it's something you walk up to, and it's for someone who's very goal-focused, type A personality coming into the mall, wants to buy something, and you walk up to it and it says, here are the top deals people are getting in the mall today. And so we want to get a little bit of that envy kind of going on, the same thing you see when you see in Xbox leaderboards that someone got to level 200 and you're still on level 3. And you want to see that, wow, someone else just saved $500 today, how do I get into that? And this is creating a really, really sort of golden moment for us, because as you walk up, our goal is not really to show you those deals. Our goal is to get you to opt into our ecosystem. So as you walk up to this, it shows you some pretty good deals that you can take and run with, kind of Groupon style. But you can then walk through a really, really simple intake system where you tell us a little bit about your preferences, you click on a few brands, on a few products you like, and it then gives you personalized deals for you right now. And then the really cool thing is it can give you time-bound offers. So rather than saying, here's a coupon, like if you talk to retailers a lot, which I do, a big problem they have is you send out coupons and gift cards, and it creates this immense overhang out in the market of money that people can take from you, but you don't know if they're going to. So the numbers on how many unredeemed gift cards are floating around in the world are absolutely astronomical. I don't have them here today. But retailers really like the idea of being able to go out there and say, here's an offer, and I'm only going to give it to people in this age range, of this gender or whatever, and from when they get the offer, they're only going to have 2 hours to redeem it. And so that lets them basically make much, much better offers to people because they're not worried about the 4,000 of them that aren't going to be redeemed. They only issued one coupon. This gets into a lot of challenging stuff because, my time check? Close. I'll move faster. We've got about 5 minutes left here. More on coupons later. Projective touchscreen is another UI we're looking at. The nice thing about projective touchscreen in public environments is they're absolutely robust. It's basically you put a projector on the screen. This one works with infrared as well, and what it lets you do is walk up to a wall and interact with it as though it was a touch screen, but there's nothing there that you can destroy except a little bit of sheetrock. And I'm going to skip this one. It's really cool, but I'm not going to show you right now. And I just want to show you the one that we have that puts it all together. And this one's called FriendShop. Some of the projects we're working on at eBay are around watching what people shop and wish for and getting an understanding of what it is that they're interested in and what they want to buy. And so someone walking into a retail environment, this is really valuable information. And so in this scenario, we have 3 teenage girls who like to shop together. They all use this app, so we know what sort of things they're looking for to buy. And as they walk up to the kiosk can recognize them by looking at the IDs on their cell phones if they're opted into the environment. And it can look through their galleries and see what each of them are interested in and find things that they're interested in common. And so this is what we call an algorithmic coupon. And we can say, here's 3 people who all want this object. You have an opportunity to sell it to them right now if you give them a really compelling offer. And so then the kiosk can then present to these girls, if you all buy this one sweater that you're all looking for, we're going to give you something like 40% off, but you have to consummate the purchase within 30 minutes. And so this is something where it's really about the intelligence on the mobile phone, which gives us sort of an authentication into their world and private data, and then the kiosk becomes a presentation point where we can remind them of something that this ecosystem has to offer them. I'm sorry, I thought there was going to be a clock somewhere around here. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, -1 minute. It's hiding behind 0 minutes. I'll just skip to my most important slide. So thank you. Yeah. So we are building this out now. I can't make any promises about it because it's not a commercial shipping product, but it's something we're deeply investing in. We're building a lot of custom hardware and software around this, and we think we're going to learn a lot of really interesting stuff. So thank you very much.